In the winter of 1987, a man named Ronald Gene Simmons orchestrated a horror that would stain the pages of history. Known as the Hillbilly from Hell, his actions would reveal the darkest corners of the human soul. What drives a man to destroy what he's supposed to protect? Early life and background. Born on July 15, 1940, in Chicago, Illinois, Ronald was the only child in what appeared to be a nurturing family environment. However, stability was short-lived. His father, William Simmons, died of a stroke when Ronald was just 3 years old. The impact of this loss was profound and enduring. The death of his father plunged the family into financial hardship and emotional turmoil. His mother, Loretta, struggling to cope with the loss and the demands of single parenthood, soon remarried. This introduced a semblance of stability back into their lives, but it came with its own challenges. Ronald's stepfather was a military man, which meant frequent relocations. Each move disrupted Ronald's ability to form lasting friendships and foster a sense of belonging. This transient lifestyle cultivated in Ronald a feeling of isolation and detachment. By the age of 17, Ronald, perhaps seeking the structure and discipline absent from his tumultuous childhood, dropped out of school and enlisted in the Navy. His time in the military took him to Washington State. It was here that he met Rebecca Becky Ulibarri. The couple married in 1960 when Ronald was 20, and soon started a family. Over the years, they had 7 children. However, beneath the surface of this growing family lay early signs of dysfunction. Ronald's military obligations meant long periods away from home, placing a strain on the family dynamics and on Becky, who often handled the children's needs alone. The constant moving and financial pressures did little to ease family tensions. After switching from the Navy to the Army, Ronald's demeanor towards his family began to change. Reports from those years paint a picture of a man growing increasingly authoritarian and unpredictable. His control over his family tightened, and the household dynamic grew more oppressive. Descent into darkness. After his retirement from the Army in the mid-1980s, Simmons decided to isolate himself and his family from the wider world. Seeking solitude, he purchased a 13-acre plot in the secluded woods of Dover, Arkansas, around 1983. Here, far from prying eyes, the dynamics within the Simmons household took a turn for the worse, as Ronald's control over his family intensified alarmingly. The move to Arkansas marked a chilling transformation in Simmons. The sprawling, isolated property provided the perfect backdrop for his increasingly authoritarian and abusive behavior. In this remote setting, Ronald exercised absolute control over his family. Central to the tragic narrative that unfolded was the disturbing abuse of his eldest daughter, Sheila. Ronald's treatment of Sheila was particularly egregious and twisted, beginning in her early teenage years. His control over her was obsessive and all-consuming, extending to the most personal aspects of her life. The tensions within the family reached a breaking point as Ronald's behavior became more unpredictable and menacing. Arguments were frequent and intense, often escalating into physical altercations. By the late 1980s, the situation had become untenable. The Christmas Massacre. As the winter of 1987 approached, a palpable tension settled over the Simmons household in Dover, Arkansas. Ronald Gene Simmons, a 47-year-old retired military serviceman, exhibited increasingly erratic behavior as the festive season drew near. The family's isolated homestead became the setting for one of the most harrowing Christmas massacres in American history. In the days leading up to the tragedy, the atmosphere at home was fraught with an ominous sense of foreboding. Simmons's mood swings became more pronounced, and his interactions with family members grew more volatile and disturbing. On December 22, 1987, Simmons executed a calculated and horrifying assault on his own family, a series of murders that displayed an unsettling premeditation and detachment. The massacre began when Ronald Gene Simmons Jr., age 29, arrived at the family home to celebrate the holidays. Without warning, Simmons Sr. shot him with a .22 caliber pistol as soon as he entered the house. The killing spree escalated rapidly. Moments after shooting his son, Simmons turned his weapon on his wife, 46-year-old Rebecca Becky Simmons, shooting her in the same methodical manner. But the violence did not end with the couple. Simmons then proceeded to strangle his 3-year-old granddaughter Barbara in a chilling act of cruelty that underscored his complete detachment from humanity. The horror continued as Simmons methodically moved through the house, targeting family members one by one. His victims included his daughter, 24-year-old Sheila Simmons, and her husband, Dennis McNulty, both of whom he shot at close range. Sheila's 2 children, Sylvia Gale, 6, and Michael, 21 months, were also strangled by Simmons. As the hours passed, Simmons hunted down and killed his remaining family members present at the home. These included his son, 17-year-old Eddie Simmons, whom he shot, his daughter, 23-year-old Marianne Simmons, and his grandchild, 1-year-old Trey McNulty, both of whom he also strangled. In total, Simmons killed 14 of his family members, arranging some of their bodies in neat rows, which hinted at the chilling premeditation behind his actions. 4 days later, on December 28th, after a relative unable to reach the family alerted the authorities, the police arrived at the Simmons residence. They discovered a scene of devastating carnage. The bodies were found scattered across different parts of the property, some buried in shallow graves, others hidden within the home. This horrifying discovery was particularly shocking because it occurred during what is traditionally a time of celebration and family unity. The investigation revealed that Simmons planned the murders meticulously, purchasing gifts for his family members before killing them, which investigators noted as a manipulative ploy to gather everyone at the home without suspicion. His actions before and the subsequent days were eerily composed. Capture and consequences. By December 28, 1987, he drove into the nearby town of Russellville, Arkansas, where he went on a brief shooting spree, targeting people he had grievances with in the past. Remarkably, his demeanor during these events was described as disturbingly calm, which only added a deeper layer of horror to his already gruesome acts. Simmons was apprehended later that same day without incident. His surrender to the authorities was as chilling as his demeanor. He simply walked into the law offices in Russellville and gave himself up to police, reportedly telling them, "I've done all I wanted to do, and now I'm ready to pay the price." The absence of resistance or emotion at his arrest puzzled law enforcement, and later, psychologists who struggled to understand his mindset. The trial of Ronald Gene Simmons began in May 1988, just a few months after the murders. Held in Arkansas, the proceedings were a focal point of national interest, drawing attention to the depth of his crimes. During his trial, Simmons' behavior was noted for its chilling detachment. He appeared unremorseful and largely disconnected from the proceedings. In a rare display of emotion, he once attempted to plead guilty, wanting to accept the death penalty without trial, but the court denied this request, ensuring a proper legal process. Simmons was ultimately convicted of 16 counts of murder, including the deaths of his family members and the 2 people he killed during his brief rampage in Russellville. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection in May 1989. Throughout his trial and the sentencing phase, Simmons remained mostly stoic, showing little to no reaction to the gravity of his sentences or the impact of his actions on the surviving relatives and the broader community. The aftermath of Simmons' crimes left a lasting scar on the community of Dover and the field of criminal psychology. Locally, the community struggled with the media attention and the stain on their town's image. For criminal psychologists, the case was a grim study into the extreme outcomes of familial abuse, authoritarian control, and isolation. Simmons's case contributed to discussions on the psychological effects of power dynamics within families and the warning signs that might precede such violent outbursts. As we close the chapter on the harrowing story of Ronald Gene Simmons, we are reminded of the profound impact that unchecked mental strain and isolation can have on an individual, and the devastating consequences that can ripple through families and communities. The chilling events that unfolded in the winter of 1987 serve as a dark reminder of the depths to which the human psyche can descend. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of the most chilling cases in American criminal history. Now we want to hear from you. How do you think communities can better support individuals showing signs of distress? What steps can we take to ensure that mental health is never sidelined? Share your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more discussions like this one.